What is it that makes Brady elite? This is your NFL headquarters. This is NFL Total Access. With 10 days until Super Bowl 55, we welcome you to NFL Total Access. Hello, everybody. I am Rhett Lewis, and as we get set for Brady versus Mahomes, it's another top-flight quarterback dominating the headlines. Deshaun Watson making his move and requesting a trade from the Houston Texans ahead. Why it went wrong in Houston, who's in the market for Watson, what it will take to get him, and how the Texans regroup. So let's get right to it here. The why has become clear. Frustration with ownership and management in Houston over some personnel moves on being shut out of the conversation about a new GM and head coach. And now an official trade request has been made. A transaction that could fetch the biggest compensation package that we've ever seen, as quarterbacks of this caliber and this age just don't become available. And we've got it covered from every angle. We're going to get the details from our NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport, the front office perspective from our former GM Scott Pioli, and the player perspective from Andrew Hawkins and the Hall of Famer Terrell Davis. Ian Rappaport, let's start with you here. Now that the request has been made, as you've been reporting, what's next for Deshaun Watson? I feel like it might be easier to identify the teams that won't be interested, but who will be the serious players for Watson's services?
And no doubt about it, this kind of thing never happens in the NFL. A quarterback in his prime, potentially available for teams. And we've known there's been some discontent between Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans. He has not been happy for some time, as we've been talking about for a couple weeks. And while the Texans have not shopped him and have not been willing to consider a trade request, teams have been calling. Now that there is an official trade request publicly from Deshaun Watson, I would expect that to increase dramatically. From what I understand, more than half the teams have called the Texans on Deshaun Watson. If you're wondering who could be interested, I would say almost everyone, but a couple key ones to keep an eye on. The New York Jets, of course, assuming if they do end up moving on from Sam Darnold. The Carolina Panthers, who still need a quarterback of the future. I'm told they are expected to be aggressive. The Chicago Bears still have a quarterback issue. So do the Colts. Hard to imagine him going in the division, though. But essentially, anyone who needs a quarterback is going to be calling. And
Ian, with a trade as unprecedented as this one will be, what will the compensation look like?
How high can you count? The Houston Texans, if they do decide to trade Deshaun Watson, are going to get a trade package that is going to be, as you mentioned, unprecedented. We've seen some big quarterback deals. Jay Cutler in 2009 went for 2 ones and a starter. It is expected to be more than that. This is probably going to rival some of the draft moves with multiple first rounders. You're talking maybe not 2, maybe 3 first rounders and players. This is a generational quarterback who is also a great person and a great leader. If the Houston Texans decide to part ways with Deshaun Watson, it is going to be because they have no choice, because the package is that big, and because it is something they will use to rebuild the rest of their organization. Again, the Texans have not publicly made that decision.
And Ian, I'm going to come back to you a little bit later in the show on another quarterback's future with Ben Roethlisberger in just a little bit. Let's stick right here, though, because this deal's not done yet, right? It's speculation here at this point, but Scott Pioli, if you're Nick Caserio, the new GM now in Houston, are you still trying to salvage this deal, or do you have to just move on at this point?
No, absolutely. You try to salvage this deal. You're talking about a 25-year-old player who's one of the best players in the National Football League, certainly one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. So you want to spend time, if you're Nick Caserio and David Culley, trying to recruit him back home. Because remember, they don't have to trade him. Right now, he signed a deal only in September for $160 million, 4-year extension. Deshaun Watson made that choice consciously to sign that contract. The Houston Texans hold their rights, but you don't want to be, if you're the Texans, you also don't want to be a bully about it. So they need to try to find a way to bring this player back into the fold. And I think one of the other important things is that they have to understand that they have an obligation to their team to do what is best for the team, and keeping Deshaun Watson is what is best for the Houston Texans and everyone involved.
And how about this first month on the job for Nick Caserio, as challenging as I can remember for a new general manager? All right, let's Let's dig in here, Terrell Davis. With all things considered now, what's been your reaction to how this has all unfolded with Deshaun Watson?
I'm just curious, when Scott talks about keeping them there and trying to convince them to stay, how do you do that? I mean, they've had time to do that, and he's waited and he's watched. And we've seen this organization make decisions without him being involved. Here's what I would say. If I'm a player and I'm watching this, the Houston Texans aren't a team that I'm willing to go to as a free agent. I mean, this, as you watch the way they've handled when they got rid of D-Hop, who was Deshaun's favorite, target, without him even knowing. He found out through a text message. And then you talk about some of the trust issues that he has with Cal McNair, the owner of the Houston Texans. It just seems like that starts from the top of that organization, and it has a trickle-down effect. And when you have a quarterback like Deshaun Watson in his prime saying he does not want to be there, that is some deep-rooted issues that players around the league are aware of.
Absolutely. I mean, if you put yourself in Deshaun Watson's shoes and just look at the situation, he's looking around the league. He's seeing what's happening with Matt Stafford. He's seeing what's happening with Aaron Rodgers and some of these incredible quarterbacks who are losing some of the best years of their lives because the talent around them isn't where it needs to be. Now, multiply that times 10. That is the Texans. And also, he's watching a Super Bowl where he's seeing Patrick Mahomes with weapons like Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, or Tom Brady with the plethora of options that he has. And he does not want to waste his best years with an organization that will not build around him, right? And beyond that, when you talk about the issues, TD, you're absolutely right. When someone shows you who you are, you believe them. He has not been treated, in his opinion, like a top quarterback, like one of the best quarterbacks in the league with the decisions that have been made from DeAndre Hopkins to the coaching process. So I think for him, he's like, yo, I'm going to cut it off here now. We're going to go our separate ways and, build the rest of our career from there.
Dramatic turn of events considering this is a player that signed a $160 million contract extension less than 5 months ago. And now an official trade request. Guys, thanks very much. So Watson taking 2 spots after Patrick Mahomes in the draft about 4 years ago, right? And now would love to take his next team, if that's the way it goes, to what Patrick Mahomes is doing right now, which is preparing for yet another Super Bowl.
They have a really good defense in general. I mean, obviously the front is special at every single position, but their whole entire defense, they make a lot of plays. And so for us, you have to have trust in those guys up front. They work their tail off just like everybody else. And so I felt like they've done a great job all year of going against a lot of good defensive fronts. And for me, I just got to get the ball out of my hand in whatever way possible and not let those guys kind of destroy the game. You want to make sure that you get it to our playmakers in space and try to see if we can make some plays happen.
Do you remember what age you were when you first became conscious of Tom Brady, or what your first memories of him would have been, how far back that goes?
It's probably September 17th, 1995 when I was born. He's been around for a while.
Nice work, Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady and the Bucs on the practice field today, and it was the normal Thursday session. Reporters at the open portion of practice noted wide receiver Antonio Brown and linebacker Levante David were missing, along with safeties Jordan Whitehead and Antoine Winfield Jr. Head coach Bruce Arians saying it's too early to say who will play in the Super Bowl. Here's Coach today talking about his quarterback.
The question back then was if there was a quarterback that was a free agent, who would you want? And yeah, of course it was Tom Brady, but not thinking he'd become a free agent. But once he did, it was a pursuit that we wanted to make, and knew he had some interest. So, but again, if that's how you live life, I don't know. You sit and live in a closet and try to be safe, or you go have some damn fun.
He's a great man. He's a great leader. He's a great person. He's, a great friend. He's very loyal. He's just got a great way about communicating effectively with everybody around here, and everybody has a great affection for him, for the person he is. There's nobody that ever would say anything bad about BA. He's so endearing to everybody, and I think everyone wants to win for him. 2-time coach of the year, but just done an amazing job this year with the team in really adverse situations, and just, love playing for him.
I think that's a sentiment that is echoed by many that have played for Bruce Arians. As we say hello again to Hawk and TD. Let's dig into this matchup now, 10 days from now. And Hawk, I feel like it's the question we ask every week with the Chiefs. How do you slow down the offense, right? But more specifically, how can this Bucs secondary find success against this talented crew of pass catchers from Kansas City?
First off, I hope everybody finds someone that talks about them the way that Tom Brady talks about Bruce Arians. But that's beside the point. How do you stop these Chiefs wide receivers and this wide receiver core? To be honest, the answer is I don't think you can, right? But you have to be unorthodox. If I was going to give them any advice for the Bucs going into the Super Bowl, I would say be unorthodox. We've seen the Bills go into that last game, and they followed the Raiders' playbook to a T. They got deep. They kept everything in front, and what happened? They still couldn't stop him because all Patrick Mahomes did was get the ball out quicker. I think he threw 5.8 yards per throw, which was his lowest of the season and would have been the second lowest for any team throughout the season. How do you stop a team that can hit a home run, the long ball, and also hit a home run with an inside-the-park home run? With Tyreek Hill, you throw him a 7-yard pass, and he takes it 70 yards. That's tough to stop. Like when I'm playing basketball, it is harder for me to score against a guy who is unorthodox and has no idea what he's doing than it is someone I can measure their moves. So when you're going against the Chiefs, you got to be unorthodox. Sit them back sometimes be aggressive, because there is no one thing that works against this offense.
Yeah, I would guess that the Bucs secondary is going to spend a lot of time in the ears of Jason Pierre-Paul and of Shaq Barrett. Like, hey, let's get some pressure on this guy here this week, huh? You're going to give us the best chance to succeed. Terrell Davis, let's look at both offenses now, and obviously talking with Hawk about the Chiefs. I mean, both of these offenses are known for their proficiency in the pass game. But when you look at the run games, which team do you feel like will need to rely on their run game more to find the ultimate success on Sunday?
Yeah, Red. I think both of these teams really need to run the football to be effective. But I'm going with the Chiefs in this one as needing to run the ball a little bit more. And the reason is when you look at their offensive line, they just lost Eric Fisher, their Pro Bowl left tackle last week. And now they're going to move Mike Remmers, who is their backup right tackle, over to left tackle. And then Andrew Riley is going to come in and play the right tackle spot. So, listen, when you go up against the Bucs, you have to be able to have a balanced attack. You can't ask that line with two backup tackles to go up against JPP, Shaq Barrett, and the pressure that the Bucs defense is going to put on you. So you've got to have a little bit more balance. Now, I know you have Patrick Mahomes, who is the eraser, and they don't really need to run the football. But I think with them running the football, it's going to balance that offense out. It's going to allow them to have a little bit more, ways where they're not being pressured a lot.
Yeah, and the good news for the Bucs defense, they got 5 sacks from JPP and Shaq Barrett last week against Aaron Rodgers, and they boast the #1 rushing defense all year long. Thanks, guys. Get ready for an off-season carnival ride, because the NFL QB carousel is about to hit top speed. Who is on the move and who needs to make